Imagine this, a brand new cryptocurrency, one that's supposed to blow Bitcoin out of the water. And it's all led by this brilliant, charismatic visionary from Oxford. Sounds amazing, right? Now, what if I told you the whole thing was a lie? Yeah, we're about to dive into one of the biggest scams in history, and the woman at the very center of it all, who one day just vanished. And look, this isn't just some story about numbers on a spreadsheet. No. The deeper you dig into this, the darker it gets. We're talking whispers of organized crime, real physical danger. This thing goes way beyond your typical white-collar crime. The scale of this is just mind-blowing. $4.5 billion. That's how much money we're talking about, stolen from millions of regular people all around the globe. I mean, that's empire-building money. And this empire? It was built on absolutely nothing but empty promises. So, the big questions are, where did all that cash go? And maybe even more importantly, where did the woman behind the whole thing go? This right here is the central mystery of the whole story. This woman right here, this is Dr. Ruja Ignatova. In 2016, she was on top of the world. A year later, she was a ghost. And today, well, she's one of the most wanted fugitives on the entire planet. So how in the world did this happen? To get that, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. Okay, so before she became this infamous fugitive, Dr. Ruja was an absolute sensation. And you've got to understand, she wasn't just selling some new kind of coin. She was selling a dream. She was selling a global movement that she promised would completely change the lives of millions of people. And just listen to her own words. We will be the biggest out there, and we will write history. I mean, that's the kind of bold, incredibly infectious confidence she had. She would stand up on stages all over the world and promise people not just a return on their money, but a place in history. So how did she get so many people to trust her? Well, for starters, her resume was impeccable. We're talking an Oxford education, a PhD, a successful career. She was brilliant, she was polished, and she was a master at tapping into that universal desire for a better life. She basically presented herself as this savior who was going to use this fancy new technology to pull everyone out of financial trouble. And man, did she put on a show. These weren't your boring, stuffy financial seminars. Oh no. These were spectacular events packed with hype and glamour. She was selling a complete Hollywood lifestyle, standing on stage dripping in diamonds, making this dream of insane wealth feel so real, so tangible, like it was just right there for the taking. It was, when you look back, classic psychological manipulation, just on a massive global scale. And you know what? It worked. It totally worked. At its absolute peak, OneCoin had something like 3 million investors. 3 million! People from every walk of life, from London to Uganda, were pouring their life savings into her vision. This thing was truly global. This quote from someone who got in early, it just nails the whole atmosphere. They said it was all about the hype. It wasn't really about the tech. It was about buying into this incredible dream of villas and fancy cars, a dream that Dr. Ruja herself seemed to be living right in front of them.
Okay, so behind all that glitz, all that glamour, what was really going on? Let's pull back the curtain and break down exactly how this massive fraud actually worked.
The wild thing is, the scheme itself was nothing new. I mean, at its core, OneCoin was just a classic Ponzi scheme. It's a really simple idea, actually. You just pay your early investors using the money you get from new investors. It makes it look like you have this super profitable business, but it's all an illusion. And here's how that cycle works, step by step. First, you promise people the moon to get those first investors in the door. Then, you use their excitement and the fake returns you're paying them to recruit more and more people. But the whole thing is just a house of cards. It completely depends on a constant flow of new money. The second that recruitment slows down, boom, the whole thing collapses. And this right here is the central lie of the whole operation. OneCoin was never a real cryptocurrency. Not even close. You see, real crypto like Bitcoin is decentralized, it's transparent, and its value is based on the market. OneCoin was the complete opposite. It was totally centralized, controlled by Ruja and her inner circle. There was no real blockchain technology behind it. The value? It was literally just a number they typed into a computer and made up. So here's the bottom line. The most crucial point of all this. Despite all the fancy talk about writing history and a financial revolution, this was just a very simple, very old-fashioned scam. It was just dressed up in the exciting modern language of crypto. That whole tech angle, it was just window dressing for a plain and simple fraud.
But behind the billions of dollars and all the complicated lies, there are real people. People whose lives were absolutely shattered. And that is the true, devastating legacy of OneCoin.
I mean, just listen to this quote from one of the victims. It really says it all. People didn't just lose their savings. They lost their futures. They went into massive debt. Some lost their homes, and they were left with this just awful sense of shame and depression for having believed in the dream. And this devastation was felt everywhere. We're talking about investors in over 80 different countries. And the saddest part, so many of them were already in financially vulnerable situations, the very people Ruja claimed she was there to help. When you add it all up, the final tally is that staggering $4.5 billion, which brings us right back to the hunt. Because while victims all over the world are trying to get some kind of justice, investigators aren't just looking for Ruja. They're also trying to develop new ways to fight the next big scam. Because there's always a next one. Yeah, the official investigation has been going on for years now. The FBI, the IRS, they've managed to prosecute some of Ruja's partners in crime, but the crypto queen herself, she's still out there. She got on a flight to Athens back in 2017, and she hasn't been seen since. So the big question is, how do you stop something like this from ever happening again? I mean, the fact that a scam this massive could operate for so long just shows that we need better tools. And the future of fighting these kinds of complex crimes, it's all about technology that can spot patterns that we humans just can't see. Investigators are now turning to really sophisticated artificial intelligence to try and level the playing field. It's really like a new kind of arms race, but for financial security. You've got these powerful new tools, like something called graph neural networks, that can analyze millions and millions of transactions at once. They can spot the weird patterns, like money just looping back to early investors instead of going into real investments. Those are the dead giveaways of the Ponzi scheme. And the goal is to spot the next Dr. Ruja before their scam even gets off the ground. And that leaves us with one last really crucial question. The technology is always going to change, right? It was crypto this time. It'll be something else next time. But the scam underneath it all, the one that preys on our hope, our greed, and our trust, that's as old as time itself. So what's the biggest takeaway here? It's a powerful reminder that no matter how charismatic the leader is or how amazing the promise sounds, we always, always have to be skeptical of the promise of getting rich quick.